Printing is theft. Printing is a form of financial slavery. And why is it slavery? Because you have no choice. You don't vote on the printing. You don't say, well, okay, I approve this batch of new dollars coming into the system. No, you don't vote for that. You have no control over that. Not only do you not have any control over the printing process, when it's done, by how much it's done, you have no way of being able to plan for how much is my savings going to go down in value because of their printing. You have no control over that. You can't plan for it. Not only that, you can't choose which one to work for. By virtue of you being born in the United States, you are forced, compelled, whether you want to or not, to give your life for that card called the US dollar. Just because you were born here, you are locked in to now. You're a brand new human being on this piece of land called the United States. Now go spend your life working for this, while I have the ability to debase you, to print it at will, to make all of your savings continue to go down and down and down. The inflation rate is the print rate. If the Federal Reserve wants to say our mandate is for a 2% inflation rate, what it's saying is our theft rate is 2%. We're going to print 2% more supply every year, which means that every other card holder, every other dollar holder is going to lose 2% of their life that they worked for, 2% of their savings, 2% of whatever they own, 2% of the value. But you gave your time for that, and they can press a button and take the time away. Printing is not only theft, it's theft of the most dearest thing of all to human beings, time. I always use this example. I know a Venezuelan professor who told me, he's a professor in a university in Venezuela. This is not now. This was a number of years ago. He told me that, Oliver, I used to be able to work 3 hours, and the 3 hours of my pay earned me enough for a nice steak dinner and a glass of wine. 3 hours. I had to work 3 hours. And the amount of my pay for this 3 hours could afford me a steak dinner with a glass of wine. And he told me that now, today, I have to work 3 weeks for the same steak dinner and the same glass of wine. You see, people, that professor's time was stolen. He was whipped like a slave and said, I know that you used to work 3 hours for this, but now, whip, you're going to have to work 3 weeks and I'll give you this. And then later, you might have to work 5 weeks, whip, and I'll give you your steak dinner and a glass of wine. And the next time, if I feel like it, you might have to work 10 weeks, whip, for the same steak and a glass of wine. That's called inflation. It's a fancy word for theft. And theft of what? Theft of your time. You have no choice but to give your life to a card, to a coupon, to a piece of paper called the US dollar. Some of you have no choice but to give your life for a piece of paper called the yuan, the renminbi, the yen, the peso, the Turkish lira. the Canadian dollar, the Australian dollar. You don't have a choice. It's based on where you're born. It's based on the plantation that your slave parents had you on, because they were slaves too. And because you were born on this piece of land that is run by a small group of people that made their own baseball card, to use that analogy, they make their own money, they force you to work for that. But they're in control of the issuance of that money. They're in control of the supply. They're in control of the price, which means they're in control of your time. And if they want to make it 4% this year, they make it 4%. If they want to make it 2% this year of theft, we're going to only steal 2% from you this year. And they want to make it 9% the next year, they're going to steal 9% from your time, your value, your life. Time is the stuff that your life is made up of. Now, how many people on planet Earth do you think understands money, inflation, and money printing this way? What percentage of the people walking around living their lives understand? How many understand exactly what we just covered here? Less than 1%. 1%. Let's give it 1%. 1% of the entire globe's population understands what we just covered here. And if you understood this, you should consider yourselves extraordinarily elite.